Howdy y'all, my name is Caitlin, and in this series, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about upcycling. The main purpose of this series is to go into the more minute and detailed skills that are required to be an upcycler that I'm not really able to cover in detail during my main tutorials. If you don't know what upcycling is the process of using discarded materials, things from thrift stores, garage sales, donations, things like that, and cutting it up and making something new out of it. You don't necessarily have to cut it up, you can add things to it, you can take away, but basically you're just using old things and making something new. The main reasons I upcycle is, the first one, I absolutely love thrifting. It's one of my favorite things to do. The second is you can make really cool clothes. I love the clothes I've made for myself. They're one of a kind, unique, handmade, and great quality. A third really big reason is that a lot of clothing nowadays is fast fashion. Fast fashion is not really something that I support. It's just not high quality clothing, and a lot of problems that I have with it is that the labor is outsourced for the most part, and there's a lot of exploitation in labor and child labor and things like that that I do not personally support. These are also reasons why you should upcycle. It's good for the environment, you reduce waste, you don't support child labor obviously, and you can make yourself really cool clothes. It also is a great money saver. I can make myself a hoodie for $10, and as a 20-year-old college student who lives at home, I don't really have a lot of money to spend on new clothes. So with that, I'm going to show you all the materials and tools you need to make upcycles. The first and most important thing you're going to need is a sewing machine. If you would like to hand sew everything, well, power to you, but that is not something that I would like to do. I use a Pfaff Quilt Expression 4.2. It's a little bit more expensive. My mom paid for it, but if you have a cheaper sewing machine, it'll work just the same. The second thing is optional, but I highly, highly recommend it, and it is a serger. I use a brother serger, but any serger will also work just like the sewing machine. You will need a cutting mat. This is the one I use. It is 3 feet by 2 feet, and I found it at Hobby Lobby. Here are all the tools you are going to need to upcycle. Honestly, the most important is probably coffee, because whenever you're so tired, that's when a lot of mistakes will happen. Which leads me into this first item, which is a seam ripper. Whenever you mess up on seams and need to rip them out, you're going to use a tool like this. Even if you think you're perfect and you're never going to mess up, you will still need this tool for a few projects I will explain in later videos. Along with your cutting board, you're going to need some of these rulers. I'm not sure exactly what they're called. We have a lot of different ones. You really only need one, but you'll use them to cut your fabric whenever you use the cutting board. You are going to need 2 different types of scissors. I like these little micro scissors, I guess. I use them to cut loose threads, and then you're going to need bigger fabric scissors. You cannot use normal scissors. You will have to get fabric scissors, or that will be a big mess, but I really like these. You are going to need a rotary cutter, which kind of reminds me of a pizza cutter, and that's what I use to cut my fabric whenever I cut it on the board. And then I use my fabric scissors whenever I'm cutting it in other places, or if it's a really thick fabric, my rotary cutter won't go through. You are going to need pins and clips. You don't have to have both. I like having both. These are what the pins look like. You don't really need any certain size, they all work, and then usually you need a pin cushion or magnet so that you don't lose them. Here are what the clips look like. I personally like clips a lot better, but I still use pins for certain top stitching designs. You will need spray adhesive. This is the spray adhesive I use. It's called Treehouse, and it works pretty well. These are fabric markers. You can use Sharpies if you want to make marks on your clothing to cut. However, I like the fabric markers because if I mess up, they will wash out. Here is the colors and brand. You are obviously going to need thread. You will need to find what thread works best for your machine, and for the Pfaff, it is this brand right here. The final thing you're going to need is a pattern or a mold. A pattern is just something you buy. It comes with measurements and paper inside that has all the details of how to make something. I personally like to use what I call a mold, which is this right here. I made this out of styrofoam and a hoodie. You can kind of see it's in the shape of the body of a hoodie, and this is what I use to make my upcycles. I personally find the molds I make much more helpful than the patterns, but either one works. It's just whatever you like best. That is all for all the tools that you're generally going to need. Obviously, there's always something new you can add. You may need zippers, grommets, you name it. However, just those materials and tools I showed you is the basics you're going to need to start upcycling. As I'm wrapping up this video, I'd like to point out that you do not have to have an aesthetic area to sew or work or film to do YouTube, to be an upcycler, or things like that. In case you can't tell, I work in an attic, and you can see all the decorations, the junk. It's just, I would love to have an aesthetic setup. I just don't right now. And that really discouraged me when I first started doing YouTube, but I'm just letting you know you can still do it even if you don't have the perfectly aesthetic setup. With that, I'd like to thank you for watching this series. If you have any questions or there's a skill I don't address that you would like to be addressed in this series, comment below and I will do my best to make videos that answer all of your guys' questions. Make sure to like and subscribe to support my small business. I'll see you in the next video.